Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Genre Equality Podcast on the Genre Equality channel. I'm Hitzer.
I'm Hadi.
Isa.
I guess we're recording this before the new year, but by the time you listen to this, it'll be the first of 2023.
Yeah,
So we'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
let's go.
We hope the holiday seasons was great for you, and now is the time to get back to work, guys. Stop lying on your couch. Get the fuck back to work.
It's time. Holidays are over.
Which is what we're going to do here with Genre Equality, because we have lots to cover from the December slate, which offered a couple of big, very notable films, including the, I suppose, technologically revolutionary Avatar 2, Way of the Water, which we watched in 3D. Hadi, did you watch that in IMAX or just regular 3D?
IMAX.
Oh, okay, so you got the full experience. So,
Yeah.
myself and Isa only watched it in regular 3D.
Yeah.
So maybe we can compare and contrast whether like IMAX 3D does make a difference. Since it was shot on IMAX 3D, are we missing entire chunks of the frame, etc.? Things like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know
plus
though
we
because I didn't watch the normal one though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Unless I watch the normal one, I can tell you.
All right, okay. Well, like if your review is, if your rating is higher than ours, I guess we'll attribute that to the IMAX. I guess. But I think we'll also be talking about a much better film than Avatar 2, Pinocchio.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro's
Toro's.
version specifically, out on Netflix earlier last December, I should say. One of the best films of 2022, as me and Isa have already discussed, and we'll be getting more in depth into that later on. Plus, Hadi will be talking about The Witcher Blood Origin. I want to call this a spin-off. Is it a spin-off, Hadi?
No, it's a prequel.
It's a spin-off prequel.
Yes.
Okay, from the Witcher franchise starring
Yes,
Michelle Yeoh.
yes.
We'll see how that goes. Not much in quick hits this month. We're talking about Star Trek Prodigy. Which just ended a couple of weeks ago. I'll be talking about Disney's new television adaptation of Willow, based off the cult classic film, alongside the adaptation of Kindred, Octavia Butler's famed time travel slavery story. Does it, get the Handmaid's Tale treatment, or is it worse? We'll get into that a little bit later. But I think the meat of this episode is Isa's Anime Corner, because, boy, this has been a phenomenal and phenomenally packed anime season, Isa.
Oh, yeah.
Give us a little preview before we get into it.
We're going to talk about all the big returning anime and probably like the granddaddy of all returning animes, which is in Bleach. Once again, I think we've got a season that has more like big heavyweight returning animes coming back in full force. And then on the side, we have a couple of new animes which are worth taking note of in particular. And a couple of notable mentions in there just to round out, you genre fiends out there who have specific desires to watch certain things. But yeah, we have quite a bit. In fact, I think we're going to take up the majority of the time today. Hadi and Hits will be jumping in for stuff that they have also watched in a bit of a rarity here. But I mean, like, you can't ignore some of these titles, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Yes.
So we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's begin though with, I think, most people think that we would start with Avatar 2, but I'm going to hold off on that. Let's begin with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, out on Netflix right now. I think the film is hands down GDT's best in a decade.
Ooh.
Easily his best since Pan's Labyrinth.
Hell yeah.
This version of Pinocchio reimagines the classic fantasy tale through the most beautifully made stop motion animation in years. It's a powerful and life-affirming father and son story about acceptance and love in the face of pain, misery, and fascism. The film is set in 1930s Italy as Mussolini and his fascist regime is sweeping the nation. We see just how dangerous ideologies spread quickly and quietly at first, and what starts with just the town's blacksmith being a bit too obsessed with uniformity and order gives way to hordes of fanatics screaming for kids to be sent to boot camps and everyone who is different to be excluded or worse. In the middle of all of this, we meet Geppetto, who is a humble woodcarver, as you all know, once beloved by all and with a happy outlook on life. Things change when he loses his son during a senseless air raid on the town towards the end of the Great War, turning Geppetto into a grief-stricken drunk who one day curses God and the natural laws, and decides to bring his son back to life by carving a child-sized puppet. I think David Bradley gives a fantastic performance as Geppetto, but it's the animation team at Shadow Machine
Yeah.
that pushes the boundaries of stop motion animation to bring some of the best puppet performances in a film you'll ever see. When Geppetto breaks down and cries by his
Yeah.
son's grave, you not only feel the pain of the vocal performance, but you see the puppet's difficulty breathing, the trembling of his legs, the shaking of his hands, even the clothes move and flow naturally with the puppet's body, something that we rarely see in stop motion. Just as Pinocchio's wooden body is brought to life by magic in the film, so does Del Toro and his army of over 40 animators as they breathe life into wooden puppets to create some of the most stunning performances in a film this year, animated or live action. I think every character moves and behaves like a completely different individual,
Yeah.
with both performances being animated in twos, meaning animated half frames, that a regular film would, in order to bring kind of their like imperfect movements to life. They have quirks, they have itches, they make mistakes, and they shift weight when they sit down. I think the cinematographer brings a kind of live action lighting and blocking techniques to the film, making it look like it was shot with natural light and then using negative space the way that Miyazaki does. It's so good. In his grief, Geppetto makes a wooden boy, and like Frankenstein, he tempers with powers he should leave alone, and his creation is unnatural. So this version of Pinocchio has more in common with Frankenstein's cobbled together look than the uniform cute look that you get from the Disney version.
Yeah.
Indeed, Geppetto's work is left unfinished when it comes to life, and he is kind of ugly and moves like a horror monster. And in several ways, Pinocchio is a giant middle finger to the Disneyfication of both the original Carlo Collodi story and of fairy tales in general. Though this is a movie the whole family can see and get something out of it, it I think never tones down the story for kids, nor does it talk down to them. The bones of the original tale remain, like Pinocchio's time in the circus, the lesson he learns about being good, and the mess with the terrible dogfish, done here in a fantastic kind of Ray Harryhausen homage. But here the story is reimagined as one of rebellion against expectations. The escape to the circus is not initially a sinful choice of laziness, but a desperate plea for acceptance and a rejection of the conformity and the complacency of the fascist town's school. It's so thematically rich. It's so visually rich. Everything about this film is darn near perfect, a stunning achievement. What do you guys think? Let's begin with Hadi, who actually hasn't given his thoughts yet, because Isa did speak about it on the last Behold. What about you, Hadi?
I mean, I agree with everything you say.
Yep.
My God, I think this film has so much love put into it. And you can tell through the way that from the animation to the character development of Geppetto, right?
Yep.
And like his process of grief, and the magical elements are also beautiful. Like there's nothing wrong with this film, I feel. I think it's a near perfect film.
Yep.
And I love the twist and the setting of it being in post World War One Italy, where the rise of fascism and all that is like in the background of this entire film, right? At the same time, there's also that whole like that magical element that you can't really have in the original Pinocchio, I guess. That with the whole angel thing at the end and all. I have nothing bad to say about this film. I think it's near perfect. I agree with everything you say. I think people really need to watch this, man.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What about you, Isa?
I mean, I've said quite a bit, but we did promise people a full review on GE here itself. I love the fact that we got a Pinocchio for adults, right? I mean, what else can be said about the sheer amount of craftsmanship and artistry that has gone into the animation, the creature design as very in line with all Del Toro work. Even Pinocchio's design, for example, right? We are so used to what Disney gave us when we were kids, right? This very polished kind of puppet, right? But this is roughshod and is in many ways a reflection of Pinocchio's actual being, right? Like it's not meant to be perfect. He's not a perfect little boy by any measure, wooden or not. So just being able to go through all of that, all the different kind of fantastical creatures and their designs as well as we go along, the unnerving creepiness of the circus, and all of the characters that populate that, like, oh man, all of those are so good. The fact that this is pushing kind of the boundaries, right, of this stop motion animation, in terms of its realism, I think adds to the overall discomfort or unnervingness of this film, right? And just like the setting itself and choosing to put it in mostly Italy is a stroke of genius, in my
It is.
opinion, right? Like having it grounded in that way and bringing forth like both the fantastical and the horror and the horrific things set against a literal time in history where things were
Horrible.
bad, is it's just what the story needed, right? Like it could have been a stretch by any measure, but it didn't. It felt apt. It felt right, as far as
Yeah.
the story that Del Toro wanted to tell.
Do you watch? Do you
Definitely.
guys watch the making?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah,
I mean, it's hard not to. It's
Yeah,
hard
man.
not to. Like
Exactly.
it plays immediately after, and you're just like, how did they pull
Yeah.
some of these things off? It's
It's
kind of
amazing,
mind
right?
blowing. Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yep.
we have Avatar, Way of the Water, whatever, right? But I feel that Pinocchio's like just the amount of effort to bring this to life
Mm-hmm.
is so crazy. Like the things they did, man, with the puppetry, with the music,
Yeah.
everything. Like everything was so fine tuned. I feel.
Yeah. And not to mention a completely stacked cast of like
Yeah.
Oscar winners.
God damn,
It's
even
insane.
Pinocchio is great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
good.
Like you both mentioned, the whole being set during Mussolini's Italy thing is a stroke of genius, and because I expected it to be kind of window dressing, but
No.
it turns out not to be.
Mm.
It the threat of fascism kind of informs every aspect of the film, down to Pinocchio circus acts. Eventually
Yeah.
becoming propaganda, right, for the army. The script which Del Toro spent a decade trying to get made is all about disobedience. Once again, kind of making what would otherwise be considered a villainous monster into the story's hero, the only one who sees the error in people's ways and rejects them. I mean, I think likewise, the film does not give Pinocchio the goal of being a real boy, and it does not shy away from the horrors of real life.
Yeah.
The creature that gives Pinocchio life is kind of not a traditional fairy, but a frightening and hauntingly beautiful being that looks like a biblically accurate angel.
Oh yeah.
No, it's not biblically accurate.
Oh, well, not a fairy then, but it certainly looks like an angel, a very scary one.
Yeah.
And when Pinocchio first wakes up, he is a bit of a nightmare and
yeah.
an overly curious child
Yeah.
thrown into a world he doesn't know. He smashes bricks and talks back and is disrespectful. But his world is not an easy one of easy moral lessons and rewards, but full of cruelty and death and violence, like Pan's Labyrinth, like The Devil's Backbone. This is a movie set in a particularly cruel period, focused on how children have coped and suffered. There is some rather gruesome imagery, and it is not only the villains who die horrible deaths, and yet Pinocchio is far from a sour or a bleak or an overly dark film.
Yeah.
It's actually quite beautiful, about life being fleeting. A movie about a monster who wants to be a real boy, about a monster that wants his creator to love him the way he is and to be accepted for who he is.
Yeah.
This is a movie about imperfect fathers and imperfect children, about not meeting expectations and learning to live with them and accepting that life ends, that your loved ones will leave you, and embracing the time we had together. There's horror, I think, for sure, but also a lot of warmth and laughter and plenty of great songs.
Yeah.
It's kind of the best mix of classic Del Toro and new Del Toro, with the wisdom and melancholy that comes with age and experience, but also he still retains that bright-eyed love for fairy tales from his Spanish language films. Perhaps I think most impressive is how Pinocchio pushes the oldest form of animation to brand new places. Any last thoughts about Pinocchio before we move on?
Please go watch it, man. If you haven't.
Yeah. What's your rating, honey?
Like a 9.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a 8.5 for me, easily.
Yep. This is a 9 out of 10 for me as well. Universally adored. Please go watch it. It's available for Netflix. I know you all have Netflix. If you all don't have Netflix, you certainly
Just
have
borrow
a friend or
someone.
family member's passwords. Yeah. So
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it. Next up, though, let's talk about from I guess one technical marvel to another technical marvel. As you know, say what you want about Avatar 2, Way of the Water, you cannot deny
Goddamn.
the sheer revolutionary
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking technological advances that James Cameron has made for this film.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous and one of the most stunning films ever put to screen.
Yeah.
Avatar: Way of the Water, obviously a sequel to the first Avatar,
Mm-hmm.
first released 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's come in for a lot of hype, a lot of trepidation. No one is quite sure what the story was going to be, but we do know that it was going to look beautiful.
Yeah.
Having seen this, tell me your thoughts about this, Hardy. You watched it in IMAX 3D. What do you think about it?
Goddamn.
Firstly, on a visual scale, and then secondly, holistically as a film.
On a visual scale, there's nothing that comes close to this.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
god damn. Like, just the way that it explodes onto the screen, like, I guess. Pandora is such a beautiful world and so meticulously made. Like, I mean, it really left me at awe at how good the world looked.
Yep.
You know, visually everything was so well done. Like, I thought Avatar was, Avatar back then was at the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that you could improve on that. Like, they found a way, yeah. You know, Avatar 2 is so much more beautiful. It carries on that kind of legacy that Avatar 1 has, lah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
this beautiful natural world with its mega flora and fauna, you know, and yeah, it is near flawless, I would say, in terms of the visual effects. Yeah, this is the kind of like I mean therefore I think why it took so long to make also lah. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't have crunch time for your visual effect artists, you know what I mean?
Yeah, looking at you, MCU.
Yeah. It's like
Whose entire Phase 4 slate has looked like garbage.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this is what 3D effects should look like, and oh my god, this is something that you know. I mean, I'm not talking about the messaging of the film. I'm not talking about the story. I'm just talking about how fucking good it looks like. It's a 10 out of 10 just on the looks itself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about holistically? What about as a film, as a story?
As a
and
film,
everything?
the story is all right. It's an interesting expansion of the world itself, right? You get to see a new tribe, that the Reef people, correct? Which I think is an interesting thing because it's they live their life slightly differently from the jungle tribe.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we are introduced to new traditions. We're introduced to new flora and fauna, and a new side of Pandora that we haven't seen before. And that I feel it's a good thing because you don't want to be stuck in the jungle again because it's going to be the same old shit, right? The whole like humans coming back to colonize the planet again is like, you guys didn't learn the lesson the first time, is it? You know? Like, why are you doing? But then they have no choice. That's the desperation of the humans because Earth is dying. They really need Pandora. So I like that whole again that it feels similar to the first Avatar in some ways as well. In terms of the story of humans versus the natives. But I do like all the little new entrants into the movie, like the children, Spider. He's cool. I think that's an interesting character. I like, yeah. In general, I feel it is an alright story, but crazy visuals.
Don't you feel like all of James Cameron's sequels from Terminator 2 to Aliens have been the same story, just done bigger and better
Yes.
with the addition of children?
Yeah.
Like John Connor in
mean-
Terminator 2.
Like preteen John Connor, the little girl in Aliens,
Correct.
Yeah, so I think
It
like
works, though.
this may not be, yeah, this may not be the best James Cameron sequel, but it's certainly the most
It's the
James
most.
Cameron
Yes, it
sequel
is.
because it has all his tropes. You know, there's a
Yeah.
little bit of the abyss in there. There's a scene very reminiscent of Titanic.
Oh
Oh,
yes,
It's
yeah.
the
yes, yes, yes.
entrance.
Very.
You got your alien space marines and
Mm,
all of that. This is all of James Cameron's greatest hits
right,
rolled into
right.
one.
And
Now.
also,
This is now that's what I call James Cameron album.
oh yeah, why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that the a lot of people were criticizing on the eco-friendly message that the film was perpetuating, but I think it wasn't as overt as I thought it would be. It was just
Well,
there
also,
all the time, lah, I
I
guess.
mean, Hadi, I mean, like, sorry to sidetrack on this,
Sure.
but like, I mean, this is we live in an era where an eco-friendly Daniel Bryan is a heel,
Yeah.
right? And then the good guys are the ones saying fuck the environment, and you know, this is just the world we live in, lah. So
Yeah.
what
I
are we
know,
gonna
but
do, right?
honestly, I had no problem with that at all.
No, yeah, I mean, I love trees
I
and
love water.
animals, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, well,
I like
yeah,
clean
yeah.
water.
What about you, Isa? What do you think about this movie?
Oh man, I'm gonna echo a lot of sentiments for Hardy's kind of like first half, right? This looks and feels on screen like a movie that took 13 years to make.
Yeah.
You know, it is mind blowing that they could have done what they did in the first Avatar and done it more and even better, right?
Yeah.
Like we are presented with an entire half of a world that we've never seen before, with its own intricacies, with its own ecologies, with its own, you know, all of that amazing visual spectacle that we get. And for that alone, right, Avatar will definitely go down in cinema history as its own. It will stand on its own just on that merit alone.
Yeah.
Everything else, however, The Way of Water is incredibly shallow, I think. We got a 10-minute what's been going on last season and a 5-minute lore dump as to what's been going on with us.
Yep.
And then we jump straight into the story, which for the most part is MacGuffin number 2 in the same beats as MacGuffin number 1 in the first movie, right?
Wheel brains instead of Anoctonium or
Correct,
something.
correct.
Yeah. And yeah, so we follow the same kind of beats, right? The humans haven't learned jacked, which is moral in and of itself. And they're trying to do the same thing again, but for slightly different reasons, which I think might have been the most interesting one
Yes.
line of the entire fucking film,
Yes.
right? That one line changes a great deal for the universe of Avatar, but it doesn't change anything for this particular movie. I found it incredibly frustrating a lot of the time when I'm okay if you're going to throw every James Cameron, you know, feature film trope out there at me, right? There are tropes because he did it first. Sure. Give
It's
it to
his
me.
tropes.
It's his tropes. He's allowed to reuse
what he
them.
did say,
I'm
so.
all good with that, you know. But what was most frustrating for me is that every time it felt like they were about to hit a good emotional beat, they're like, okay, we hit the beat, but before we go deeper, or
Look at this.
you know what? Let's not go deeper. Let me show you something else
Yeah.
even more beautiful than the scene that you last saw, and forget about the emotional beat
Correct.
altogether.
Yeah.
Right? The characters feel flat. The plot line feels like
Okay, yeah.
it needed to exist, right? Like it
Yeah.
needed to be there just to drive the action forward. We don't have this plot means we don't get these scenes, you know. And it was one of those strange things where like the spectacle is front and center, but the story itself had to prop it up, and it didn't do the converse, right? Which is it felt problematic for me, you know. But like I think maybe a third into the film, I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna let my eyes do the absorption. I'm gonna turn my brain off, and we'll process all of this later, right? I just really wish that the kind of tender care and detail and effort that went into building a visual marvel had gone into the characters and the story. Again, we don't know how much was left on the cutting room floor, right? And
Apparently
it
like
feels
9
like
hours.
a whole lot of it was left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, right? Both in terms of all the parts of the world that we didn't get to see, and all parts of the characters that we didn't get to see. You know,
Yeah.
it felt like a bunch of cardboard cutouts taking a swim in
Can
a
I
very,
just-
very beautiful pool.
Can I just
Yeah.
add that it actually does. There's a few reviews I glanced through, right,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them like called it a documentary. I think like that's quite accurate.
Oh.
Like there are parts of it like it does feel like a documentary.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Planet Earth.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Planet Pandora. Lah.
Yeah.
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 I mean, okay. Final thoughts and ratings. I'll go
Sure.
first. I'm giving this a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm rating it slightly higher than Wakanda Forever,
Sure.
which is actually kind of similar to this film. But I just think like it deserves like a higher rating than this because visually it's such a marvel,
Yeah.
right? And I look forward to I will still be there for Avatars 3, 4, and 5 and 6 and whatnot, you know, when Jake Sully goes to visit the desert
The fire tribe.
and
Yeah.
or whatever, like,
The
and meets
volcanoes.
the yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
So
cool
like
now.
yeah. So now that he's met the natives and he's met the Maori, he's gonna meet like I guess the Freemen in the desert and the Africans in Wakanda or whatever. Avatar 4, Wakanda Forever. And all that lah. So yeah, lah,
I'm
I
down.
look forward to more stories about white colonizers losing, which is probably the most unrealistic aspect of Avatar. What about you, Jake Sully, Isa? How would you rate this?
Sorry, you go first.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, I share this sentiment. I think like the visual pizzazz of this movie alone bumps it above what an average score I would usually give a film of this quality. So it's a 6.5 for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah, watch it to be amazed and not much else. You know, and we'll see where the story goes. I don't know if it's like a trilogy thing and everything will be like nicely wrapped up in the third one.
Maybe on
But
fire.
man, yeah, Path of
Yeah.
Fire. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
But 6.5 for me.
Nice.
Okay.
How about you, Hadi?
I'll give it slightly higher. I'll give it a 7.5 for me, just because again, not just I just fell in love with just watching the planet and watching the animals and watching the people. You know, like I said there, as a documentary, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. But as a film, I think I'll give it a 7.5.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Cool. Let's move on to we're moving back to Netflix this
Sure.
time for the prequel spin-off of the Witcher franchise. This time called Blood Origin. It stars Michelle Yeoh. What is this all about, Hadi? And what do you think about it?
So it takes place a long ass time ago, before Harry Cavill's character of Geralt of Rivia is even around.
Okay.
It follows the elf-human kind of war
Okay.
that's happening. Yeah, so to me, this actually it does change a lot of the law that's already established, which
Yep.
I therefore left me a bit confused. I found that it was a very bad attempt at creating this appendix for The Witcher. You know, I was not impressed, but I didn't want to follow any of the characters that were introduced. You know, I didn't give a damn about any of their storylines or why they're traveling as a group. You know,
see.
what quest they had to finish. I didn't really give a shit. Like there was this disconnect of when I was watching it. You know, that I just couldn't understand why. But yeah, like the dialogue is so stunted. The weird amount of cursing was just
Okay.
thing. Like everything about this
Okay.
TV series or this series just irked me throughout. Like
Yep.
I didn't even like halfway through. I was like, why is this even existing? That I felt that this was a very bad, just a very bad attempt at the prequel, and something that you know, like how great House of Dragons was.
So the dragon.
House of the Dragon, yeah, this is like the total opposite. I feel.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, like
Yep.
for a prequel, you know, that takes place 500 years before The Witcher. Yeah, so I honestly I got nothing good to say about this thing at all. Like even the visual stylings and all that were really lackluster.
Oh,
More
bummer,
like
man.
a old sci-fi series. You know what I mean?
Right, right. You mean like the a series on the Sci-Fi
Oh yes,
channel, right?
correct,
An old
correct.
sci-fi
Yeah,
series.
yeah, that's what I
Okay,
meant.
like
Like a series on the sci-fi channel where they got not enough budget and all that, which
okay, okay,
doesn't make
okay.
sense for a Netflix show. What?
I mean,
Yep,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
agreed.
No, that's
So
How
yeah,
would how would you rate it, Adi?
honestly, two.
All right,
Yeah.
cool,
oh, okay.
nice, nice.
Definitely skipping that then.
All right. I mean, I'm already not a fan of the Witcher TV adaptation, so even more, I'm not going to check this out. Okay, so that wraps it up for our main topics this month. Next up, I'll be moving on to quick
Hold
hits,
up.
where I talk about some of the TV shows and films that my co-hosts have not been able to watch. Very slim pickings this month. I'm going to start with, I think, my favorite of the three that I'll be talking about, Star Trek Prodigy. Can you have Starfleet without Starfleet? That is
Mm.
the essential question that Star Trek Prodigy asks in the back half of its first season. The villainous diviner, played by John Noble, told his daughter last time that the advanced vessel ferrying the series' young heroes contains an AI weapon that could decimate the Federation. If that weren't enough, the flesh and blood Vice Admiral Janeway, the real Admiral Janeway, not the hologram this time,
Yep.
played again by Kate Mulgrew, has reason to think that whoever is piloting the Protostar stole the ship and marooned her best friend Chakotay. So, despite how badly the show's main characters want to join Starfleet, there's a plethora of reasons to stay far, far away for the time
Yeah.
being. And yet, even if they're guided by the hollow version of Voyager's captain rather than a genuine article, the teenage crew of the Protostar has internalized what really matters from Starfleet. Its ideals. They want to do good throughout the galaxy. They aim to help whoever needs their assistance, and hopefully they can help each other as well. They hope to rack up enough good deeds so that when it's safe to return to the fold, Starfleet's admirals and bigwigs will recognize each starry-eyed kid as one of their own, as ready and worthy of being inducted into the organization despite their lack of formal training and their shall we say, complicated path to get there. I think that's the best part of this batch of episodes from Star Trek Discovery. The
Oh,
young
Star Trek
crew of the Protostar.
Prodigy.
I'm sorry, yeah, Star Trek Prodigy, my bad. The young crew of the Protostar are still finding their way. Dell is still wrestling with questions about his origins and identity and what that would both mean for his future. Gwyn is still recovering her memories after the events of last season
Ah,
and reckoning with her father's abuses. Zero strives to make up for the harm of their efforts to save Gwyn last season. And, it's kind of the guilt is weighing on him. Rock Tuck reaffirms her hopes to become a scientist, but wants to figure out which branch of science is right for her talents. Jenkem Pog struggles with his sense of self and what it means to be a Tellarite and an engineer. Even Murph is going through some changes. Amid all that uncertainty, what keeps the kid adventurers together are the moral and ethical principles of the Federation and their commitment to the cause. The abiding and inspiring message that runs through this block of episodes is that the substance of Starfleet, and by extension, the substance of Star Trek, is vastly more important than the form, which is why Star Trek Prodigy continues to be a really good Star Trek show.
Yeah.
7.5 out of
Oh,
10 for me.
nice. Is that the same as last season?
This is technically the second half of season one,
So yeah,
which is broken up into two parts.
this episode 11 to episode 19, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
I
yep.
haven't caught up yet. I'm gonna start watching it soon.
Sweet, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have three good Star Trek shows
Yeah, man.
concurrently on air. With Lower Decks and of course with Strange New Worlds,
Yeah,
one of the best new
exactly.
shows out there. Next up, I'll be talking about Willow. It's a
Aw.
television sequel series to George Lucas's 1988
Movie.
cult fantasy classic. Yeah, film. Also called Willow. Willow Ovegood, again played by Warwick Davis, leads a desperate group of heroes to help save the world. Although there's a lot of nostalgia at play here, Willow is just a solidly kind of down the middle piece of
It
entertainment.
is.
It aims to please an audience that already loves the property with a few updated ideas and some, buffed up, polished special effects,
Yeah.
thanks to the times we live in. It suffers mostly when it doesn't quite grasp the voice and tone of the original film, but just as its successes are not dazzling, its failures are also not fatal, making this show neither good nor bad. It's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Kindred, which is based on Octavia E. Butler's groundbreaking, award-winning time travel novel of the same name. Kindred, the TV show follows a young black aspiring writer named Dana who has just moved to LA. One day, inexplicably, she is suddenly pulled back in time into the 1800s onto a plantation where she is assumed to be a slave. And most surprisingly, that same plantation has ties to her family history that she never knew about. So, how is the show? Well, I think Kindred doesn't quite dazzle in the same way as the very best recent novel to TV adaptations have done. But the series does, for the most part, do justice to the metaphor at the center of Octavia Butler's masterpiece. While Kindred's first season is thematically rich, it is also narratively sluggish, dragged down by unnecessary padding, and a very kind of weirdly PG depiction of slavery that kind of runs counter to the message that the real life horrors of slavery. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Pretty decent, not too bad. But yeah, in no way is it close to season 1 of The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
Yeah, that wraps it up for this session of Quick Hits. Next up, we go to probably the bulk of this month's genre equality, Isa's Anime Corner. What do you have for us, Isa?
Oh man, this fall season 2022 that we've just had is one of the most chock-a-block seasons we've gotten in a long while, largely thanks to a lot of big series coming back, of which we will talk about the grandfather, the granddaddy of it all. Our shonen giant Bleach is back with 1,000-Year Blood War. Did you guys watch Bleach in its original run when we were a lot younger?
Yep.
Yeah. Hadi, what about you?
Maybe Hadi didn't, but yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so back in the day, Bleach was kind of like one of the big three, right, of its time. There was Bleach, there was One Piece,
Naruto,
and there was Naruto, and these were like the big three kind of like shonen jump anime that were basically dominating, right, viewership at that time. So a good, oh man, how many years has it been? It's nearly 15 years now. Basically, we've gotten a new Bleach anime here, again by Studio Pero itself. It's currently one of the highest rated anime on my anime list with a score of 9.22, which is kind of mind-blowing. And we jump back into the world of Bleach following, once again, our protagonist, Ichigo Kurosaki, who finds himself caught in a very different war. He's dealt with the Hollows, he's dealt with Aizen, he's dealt with all of those things, and now there's a war between the Quincy and the Soul Reapers, and he finds himself caught in between. The manga has been out for so long, I don't know if it's actually a spoiler. And that actual struggle or dilemma that he has extends to his own personal origin story as well, which you will uncover as you go along. You guys have both watched 1,000-Year War, or is it just hits?
I've watched the first 5 episodes.
Just like the first 5 minutes of the first episode. I haven't really caught up yet.
Okay, cool. How do you find it hits so far, and in comparison to what you remember it being?
I think it's pretty good. I remember Bleach being, especially in its last maybe 2 or 3 seasons, being quite bad. This has kind of reinvigorated Bleach in many ways.
Yep.
I think visually it stands up with other shonen anime of contemporary time. So, I'm glad they updated the visuals on all of that. I think it's just a reinvigoration of Bleach and kind of makes up for the misses and the padding and the extra stories that went in the manga that kind of made up its last. I think it's last very bad 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
It kind of had like a bit of a Game of Thrones final season sour taste in my mouth. Bleach did. And 1,000-Year Blood War is it's like the hot deal, and it's reinvigorated my interest in it.
Yeah, for sure. Bleach for me, like 1,000-Year War has been a bit of a revelation, right? Like in the announcement of this coming out, I went to rewatch old Bleach, all of old Bleach, right? Which was really hard because so much of it was in in like 480 4:3. It was meant for a very very kind of like different time, and you're absolutely right. Like the production value for that definitely tapered off to the poorer side as things went along, and its
Yep.
popularity outstripped its ability to keep up with the story from the manga itself. A Thousand Year Blood
Yep.
War is Bleach's most popular arc in the manga itself, and I'm glad that fans have finally
Oh.
gotten to see the on-screen adaptation, and for it to be
Mm-hmm.
of this quality. It
Mm-hmm.
has all the look and feel and vibe of the original Bleach, but with visuals and art that justifies its presence in today's slate of like the top anime that we are getting out of the shonen genre.
Okay. Yep.
There's a lot of kind of twists and turns, and I think like if you haven't kind of like caught up yet, we're not done with the series yet. But if you haven't caught up yet, I'm not going to spoil anything of that. But I will tell you that if you were a Bleach fan, this is definitely going to rock your socks.
Sure.
If you aren't a Bleach fan, this is still worth checking out, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can see what some of your friends were telling you all those years ago, and see what the hype was about there. This has been
Mm-hmm.
really, really solid, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of those few cases that we've seen in recent times where a anime has taken a long, long break and come back even stronger. For that, let's move on and talk about My Hero Academia season
Hey.
6.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you and I were talking about like season 5 was the second half of season 5 was okay. It was okay.
It's really
Right,
to
but
set up this season, I feel.
yeah, it was all set up. Hadi, you're absolutely right. It was all kind of set up, right?
Yeah.
Ever since we started season 6, it has been non-stop. Okay, My Hero Academia season 6 feels like Dragon Ball Z at the moment because we are still on the same freaking fight. And
Mm-hmm.
we are like a good solid 10 episodes in,
Yeah,
and we're
man.
still on the it's so good, right? They've upped the stakes significantly. I think it's beginning to come to a point where by our favorite class of heroes are now reaching the point where they have to decide whether this is actually it. Is this for them, right? Are they going to choose greatness? Are they being thrust into greatness? Are they destined for greatness? All these kind of things
Yeah.
are being pulled into the forefront of the enemy at the moment. And like everything that's gone on in season 6 thus far, I think justifies the need for setup previously, where you tackle all the kind of like nitty gritty and the setup and everything Hawk was doing, and all the emotional kind of like
Yeah.
homework that needed to be done with Todoroki's family and all of that.
Robin.
Yeah, and we're finally here, and they're facing off, and I really, really hope that the explosive end that we got in the manga for this particular arc is what we're gonna get.
I
on
haven't read
screen.
the manga, so I have no idea.
It's all good, man. Then
But
you're in
God
for a
damn.
ride. Let's just put it that way. Cool.
Like,
Yeah.
so when like dub. Oh, okay, never mind. Spoilers. It's okay.
You have clarified.
Gabi lah. Yeah. lah.
Yeah.
Yeah. lah.
We can talk about it after the recording. Let's
Sure.
not spoil
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
for
yeah.
people. Also returning this time, Spy X Family Part 2, where Anya successfully enrolled at Eden Academy.
good for
Operation Strix has officially moved into its second phase. Forgetting her first stellar star, she's got her new dog, Bond,
Yeah. Who can tell the future?
Nice.
who can tell the future, and only Anya can read his mind, which is kind of brilliant. I love the furry addition to the family. It has been great, all of that. This particular arc continues the story of our favorite fake family, I guess, as Lloyd tries to juggle everything that's going on. Anya tries her best to aid her father and her mother in the things that they are doing, the only one in the family knowing the secrets. Yor is confronted by a potential competitor for her place in the family.
Nightfall?
In the form of Nightfall, Fiona.
Yeah.
And so shenanigans abound in Spy X Family. We get a sports arc, which was kind of brilliant and kind of ridiculous at the same time, featuring tennis of all things. But yeah, Spy X Family continues to deliver on the same brand of humor that they gave us in part 1. I'm looking forward to just seeing like this franchise continue to play out in the way that it did in the manga, and hopefully we get this continues to be a long and well enjoyed franchise for that.
Definitely.
I'm gonna quickly run through a couple of other stuff. Golden Kamuy season 4 is back. I will admit I am not caught up with this season yet, but I've talked about Golden Kamuy a number of times. Highly, highly underrated. If you want a very interesting kind of like period slash mystery slash mystery slash kind of regency thing going on in Japan. Golden Kamuy is great. Please go and check that out. Let's talk a bit about Mob Psycho 100 Part 3. Hits, you have very strong feelings about this one as you've had with all the Mob Psychos that we've gotten so far. How are you finding season 3 so far?
Now that season 3 has wrapped up, in fact, season 3 is apparently its final season. So the series finale has wrapped up.
Yep.
With quite a beautiful, emotional ending, climactic last 3 episodes that brought back nearly every single character we had met over the past 3 seasons. I think Mob Psycho 100 is the best anime I've seen this year. The best genre show I've seen this year. It's a better, funnier, smarter, zanier version of One Punch Man.
Yep, absolutely.
Because it goes to places that One Punch Man's comedy just refuses to. There's that emotional poignance like with Kageyama's story, not the Haikyuu Kageyama and the Mob Psycho Kageyama.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really great. What about you?
Yeah, for Mob Psycho 100, like I was pondering for a really long time, what is the essential difference, right, between One Punch Man and Mob Psycho? Same creator, more or less the same studio, kind of, maybe. But the quality of it is so different. And at the end of the day, I think for me is that Mob Psycho is a human story, right? And One Punch Man is not. One Punch Man is a monster story. And that is the essential difference, right? There's so many things that you get with Mob Psycho in terms of its emotional richness that we won't get from One Punch Man, and we never will, and we're not expecting it to, But the very fact that we start off season 3 with a very almost kind of mundane arc, right? With Kageyama going back to school and like dealing with all the school life things that he hasn't really been able to adjust to while dealing with all these incredible things that are going on and the giant broccoli looming over the city. It's been intense, but heartfelt, and it continues to deliver on the most insane visual fight scenes I think I've ever seen as a representative of like psychic powers. Madness, absolute madness. Hit, you're absolutely right. The last 3 episodes are bonkers, and like totally like up there with I'm a little sad that it's ended, but at the same time, what a great end to the franchise so far. Highly recommend you catch it up if you're in Singapore. Mob Psycho, its entirety is on Netflix, so you can go ahead and binge all of that to your heart's content.
I haven't even mentioned probably like the last 3 episodes were great. The best 2 minutes, the best 1 minute 30 seconds of TV that I've ever seen. Probably in the 21st century is that 1 minute 30-second journey that one kid who got abducted by UFOs. It's the best version of Avatar you will ever see.
Oh my god! It's
so even like the one closing credit sequence blew my mind. Could have been an entire show by itself.
Absolutely. So Mob Psycho season 3 wraps up the story from Shigeo and all of his friends. Please go check it out. Let's talk a bit about To Your Eternity season 2. We were very hyped about season 1. And season 2 is 2/3 of the way through, I guess, at this point in time. Hits, you were telling me that you had a bit of a concern with season 2.
I've seen the first 5 episodes of season 2, and it has convinced me to give up on the show, so I've not seen it anymore.
Okay, cool. I've pushed past. I know exactly pretty much where the point is. I think that you dropped off for. I've pushed past that. It does get better, but it's nowhere near the highs that you get from season 1. Like To Your Eternity was probably one of the highest ranked animes for season 1 that we've given. And that was like in the same breath as like Odd Taxi. Right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think like where we are at right now in kind of like following Fushi is immortal being problems lah, essentially. It's people, you've seen just so much death and so much sadness and so much melancholy. The season feels like it's retreated into itself to become a little more introspective, but it's hard for an immortal creature to be introspective in the way that we humans will find satisfying, I think, is the general
Mm-hmm.
thing. With no external stimuli for the first 5 episodes in particular, it does feel like a bit of a downer. The pacing has gone off significantly from what we expected, from the bar that has been set in season 1. It does pick up
Mm-hmm.
later on, and I will say it's still good. It's just not as good as season 1. So I'm very curious how they end season 2, number 1, and to
Mm.
see whether or not there's anything planned for future seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. Wrapping up the returning titles, JoJo Bizarre's Adventure Stone Ocean Part 3 has also recently released, with a continuation of the adventure with Kujo Jolene and her bunch of friends as she tries to rescue her father from death, being comatose. Death, we are not really sure. They don't really tell you exactly in true JoJo fashion. If you love JoJo, I personally think this is one of the most compelling seasons thus far, of the 3 parts that have been released. I believe there's one more part left. Part 3 has been a ride. Its climax will leave you gasping, just in terms of the audacity of the things that they decide to put on screen. Um, but yeah, a great ride. Let's jump into new anime. First of all, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna a bit of a outside pick, I guess. I'm gonna talk about Raven of the Inner Palace, which is a Chinese, like a period Chinese inspired anime, right? Um, we basically we're following a new emperor to be, and his very feared the Raven consort, uh, and essentially it's all the stuff that you get from a Chinese period drama but anime style. And it is insane how well it translates over, right? I know we have kingdoms, and that's like the whole like 3 kingdoms thing translated to anime. But to me, this is the first time I've seen that. Raven of the Inner Palace has all the political intrigue that you would expect from a Chinese period drama set in the dynasty of its time. It has been quite a ride, and just like something, a bit of a breath of fresh air for me, as I've been watching this. I'm not totally caught up yet, but there have been some very well timed, well paced cliffhangers. And it's an interesting ride if that's up your jam. It's also
Okay.
beautifully rendered. The artwork is different from what you usually expect, right? It has all the anime sensibilities, but with a very clear inspiration from the time period that it draws the story from
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
itself. Uh, Hopping on to the next one, let's talk about Blue Lock. Any of you caught Blue Lock?
Blue Lock on Netflix.
I caught the World Cup.
You caught the World Cup, which is the kind of next closest thing. So if you guys
Yeah.
were wondering about the new
Japanese
uniform
suit.
that
Yeah.
that the Japanese soccer national team were wearing at the World Cup, it's actually designed by the same artist that created Blue Lock.
Yep.
Blue Lock stands out to me as we've gotten so many great sports anime, right? We've got Haikyuu, we've
Yeah.
got Hanabado, we've got Yomimushi Pedal, and all of that has been great. You know, we get this amazing kind of animation surrounding the sports style with all its kinetic movement, and its pizzazz in that sense. And we get all the heartwarming stories about discovering friends and respecting your rivals and things like that. Blue Lock has none of those things in mind. The entire globe and Blue Lock is named after the experimental facility that 300 of the best uh, strikers, right, or specific position that they're looking in Japan have showed up to be trained to eventually become the best striker in Japan in order to boost the nation's hopes of winning a World Cup, essentially, to into life, right? And we follow a bunch of a very large ensemble of a
Yeah.
fairly peculiar possible protagonists, I guess is the best way to put it, as they ditch their ethical and moral boundaries to become a singular goal making machine with no absolute quandary for anything else outside of that. right? You have a coach who is both a mad scientist at the same time, with some of the most insane things spouting out of his mouth in terms of what sport should really be about. That is the antithesis, I think, of what most of us would celebrate about sport. And for that reason, and probably for that reason alone, Blue Lock is something new, right? It is a sports anime that does not give a damn about your teamwork or your heartfelt team bonding moments. None of that. It's who can climb to the top by stepping over who. It gets absurd. It gets insane. It gets a little ridiculous near the middle, and even more ridiculous near the end. I didn't like Blue Lock for the first episode that I saw. I didn't quite understand why I would be bothered with this, but it's been getting a lot of hype, right? Especially as the World Cup has come and gone.
Yeah.
So I caught up with all of that, and I can see it appeals to kind of a specific crowd. Like, a dark sports anime isn't something that we get very often, and this is probably the newest and most shining example of that, which it cements the sport as something very, very different within the genre itself.
Curious, why would the, I guess, creator pick a team spot for this particular premise? Wouldn't a solo spot be more,
Exactly.
in tune?
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea, and I don't think they ever quite explain why. I have a feeling, given when Blue Lock was released, which was just before the World Cup started, right? That it had to do a little with that, but that could be just a marketing PR thing, in terms of its timing for all of that. Because we're talking specifically, we're not talking about like creating an entire team of like soccer soldiers, right?
No.
It's not that. It's just one striker. They want to make that
Yeah.
one striker, right?
But in the end, the striker will still have to work with a team.
Yes. They don't quite explain. Oh, they kind of explain that. They kind of explain that.
Yeah.
Basically, they want to create Ronaldo, right? Like Cristiano Ronaldo. That's the goal,
Yeah.
right?
Like, but I get the premise if it's like about boxing or MMA or mountain climbing or cycling. It's something that is not a team sport, lah. But this one is a bit peculiar, lah.
Yeah. It's strange that way, right? The choice
Yeah.
of sport is strange, but I mean, I'm not surprised at the same time that soccer was the one that was chosen, right? Because we haven't, like, if
It's
we
been a
look
while.
at it's been a while since our last soccer anime,
Yeah.
basically, right? And to add, like, I think this adds a bit more towards like Kuroko's basketball than like Haikyuu or Hanebado, in terms of its flavor. So having all of that kind of like weird, innately gifted powers thing together with what is clearly an absurd premise has been strange, right? If anything I have said appeals to you, Blue Lock is very highly recommended on Netflix right now, so you can go and check it out and let us know, right, how you feel
Sweet.
about it. It's gotten a lot of hype. I'm not sure if I enjoy it exactly, but it has been compelling in the strangest of ways. For
I
sure.
like that all the characters are basically all the usual sports anime trope characters.
Yes, exactly, and they're pitting them against each other. Yeah, that in and of itself is a fascinating, like, as a approaching it as from a writer's point of view. That's weird and strange, and I'm kind of here for it. Yeah,
And you're right about that.
Just-
Like, everybody can be the protagonist.
yeah. I mean, there is a clear protagonist. They set that up very clearly. But like, you feel like it could possibly switch at any one point in time. You know, like, who abandons their morality first, right? Is who's gonna get there first.
Yellow.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if, like, say, Whiplash focused on the entire orchestra and not just Miles Teller's character.
Yes.
I
Something
think
like that.
it would. Okay, it's more like the orchestra exists, but we are basically following 300 Miles Tellers in a Squid Game-esque competition to find the best drummer who is not going to drag
Or like, Miles Teller's alternates,
Yeah,
the other two.
yeah,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
That's exactly it.
Okay. Cool. All right.
One of my favorite animes this season, new ones, is Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury.
Man, yes.
Oh my god, this is so good, guys. This is Gundam's newest attempt at the Gundam Light, I guess is the best way to go about it.
Sure.
An alternate universe. whereby all the great things that you love about Gundam, the political intrigue,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
big mechas,
Yeah.
the kind of like the under table dealings that take place and all of that,
In high school.
disenfranchised people. Yeah, gets placed in high school. Hadi is absolutely right. Right, we follow Soleta Mercury, who leaves her planet to enroll in a school of technology at the behest of her mother. And lo and behold, it's a school for people wanting to pilot mobile suits, right?
Yep. Yep.
And the main way, even in a far advanced civilization of settling disputes is via mobile suit dueling.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it like real steel?
Um,
No, real
Not-
still you video control, ma.
Yeah, no, like you actually have to pilot this thing. So
Okay.
in this particular universe of the Gundam series, Gundams have been banned
Outlawed.
because of the particular way in that they interface with their pilots and
Yeah.
might even be potentially deadly. So you kind of like, that's the world that they set it up in. It proceeds from that into the revelation that Suleta is special and she has a Gundam,
Of course she is.
into like a full on. Oh man, there are segments of it will go from that. Then you have high school drama, and then you have these kids setting up a intergalactic business,
Yep.
and then the entire process and pitfalls of that, followed by more political intrigue, followed by more high school drama, and it's peppered in between with some of the best mecha action sequences I have ever seen.
Yeah,
No
true.
joke,
100%.
right? Which for Mercury is balls to the wall, insanely well rendered and beautiful, in particular its action sequences, with interesting characters that you would find in any good high school rom-com, but with the added fact that in this universe, like in any Gundam universe for the fact, there's a lot of things going on in the background, a lot of politics, a lot of war, a lot of capitalism in its most gruesome form, playing on in the background as these kids just try to make a better world for themselves. And it has been surprising and heartfelt and absolutely a joy to watch, which I have not said of a Gundam series in
In a
a
while.
very, very long time. So highly recommend Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury. Like, sure, it's an advertisement for toys, but it's a very, very well-made advertisement for very expensive toys.
Yep.
Yeah, I've loved that so far. Before I jump on to what is possibly the one title that everybody's waiting for me to discuss, I'm not going to talk about that first. Chainsaw Man is next up. But before that, I want to talk about Akiba Maid War, right? If you enjoyed our previously on Genre Equality recommendation of Yaboy Kongming, then Akiba Maid War is basically Yaboy Kongming meets Durarara meets Chainsaw Man all bundled together in one. It's madness. So basically, we follow Nagomi Wahira, who gets hired in a maid cafe and gets dragged into a world where all the maid cafes are mafia and are at war with each other. It's mind-boggling what exactly is going on, right? So she basically finds a way to adapt and integrate herself into this society that she's find herself dragged into, and it's crazy. Like it has, like, it's everything that you would get from a gangster, like a anime gangster film, but they're all mates. They all work in maid cafes, and it is insane. It's absolutely absurd. It's gory. They have very, very early on in the series, I can't remember which episode, it was 2 or 3, you have one of the most stunning gunfights I've ever seen. Like, it's a mass gunfight along in the streets of Akihabara, with like dozens and dozens of people on both sides. But the entire thing is a musical number. It's brilliant and it's
Wow.
crazy, and it's I mean, it's hard to describe without you kind of like watching it, right? So
Right.
if you love Chainsaw Man, please also go check out Akiba Maid War. I think this is one of those sleeper things that people aren't gonna take seriously because of its name and because of the premise itself. But in terms of just like the insanity that ensues from episode 1, I've had a whale of a time watching this, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around why it's so good. But yeah, Akiba Maid War is my second top recommendation as far as new anime goes.
Awesome.
And we get finally to Chainsaw Man. Hits, you've written a bit about Chainsaw Man recently.
Yep.
Are you caught up already?
Yes.
How do you feel?
I like it. It's my second favorite anime of the year. The third being Spy Family. First being Mob Psycho 100, of course.
Yes, of course.
I think it's great. Like when you all were talking about how Mob Psycho 100 has like such great action sequences and all that, My Hero Academia and all of that. Like Chainsaw Man has the best action sequences
Yeah.
of any of the enemies that I've seen
Yeah.
for sure. It is frequently subversively funny, but not in a One Punch Man way. Like it's funnier actually. I mean, I loved everything about the show. It's also the prettiest anime that I've seen in a long time. I love every single ending credit sequence
Oh, yeah.
because they're all different. It's like, remember like how Weeds used to have a different opening every time, but this one different ending. Those are in itself like works of art. Chainsaw Man is great. It lives up to all the hype.
Yeah.
If not for Mob Psycho 100, it would have been my favorite anime of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that are uninitiated at the ridiculous hype that has been going on around this anime adaptation of the manga, we follow Denji, who is trying to live a normal teenage life, but is severely in debt in a world where devils roam around. So he decides to become a devil hunter, has a pet devil dog that gives him renewed life and also the ability to summon chainsaws anywhere on his body he wants. We have possibly the most girl boss problematic favorite in recent history in the form of Makima. I won't
Yeah.
say anything more than that, but man, she's problematic. But so lovable to watch on screen as well. Chainsaw Man is a gory, hyper violent, fever dream of an anime. Everything that you may or may not have read in the manga as well has come to life in a way on screen that makes total sense, right? The manga itself was noted for its very experimental kind of like layout and just artistic choices. And I think that while not translating exactly onto the anime in the same way, has felt very true to form and to the spirit of the manga itself. Please go check it out. It's quite a ride. I think it's like 11 episodes out at the moment. So we are on the cusp of getting the finale
Yep.
soon. But I am really looking forward to seeing more of this in the future years. Top pick
Definitely.
for new anime this season
Yep.
is definitely Chainsaw Man. Real quickly
Yes.
before we move on to different things, I'm gonna give you guys a couple of notable mentions for the other genres that I don't think got any sort of mentions in the new stuff. If you are looking for your heartwarming kind of slice of life stuff, please go watch Do It Yourself. Right, we here at Genre Equality are very big on anime that teaches you stuff, and Do It Yourself is uh, it's about a makers club based in the near future and all the shenanigans that go on with that, with real life like tips about how to make stuff and like real world physics that they explain to you. And I love it. It's cute, it's heartwarming. The animation style is has been great. Pine Jam has been doing a great job with Do It Yourself, and it's very hard not to watch this anime and smile, not smile. So that's my shout out for your slice of life for this season. If you are looking for teen high school drama rom-com stuff that's a little more than horny, then I would suggest you catch More Than a Married Couple But Not Lovers. Basically, we follow two third-year high school students. One is a nerdy gamer boy, the other one is a full-out gal. And they are forced to partner with one another in their school's very strange, very invasive, and very questionable marriage partnership program, where they pretend to be a couple and score points in order to, I don't know, rise to the top and swap partners with the people that they actually want to be partnered with. Of course, they stumble upon affection and love and problems along the way. It is incredibly dramatic, but not to the point of being melodramatic. There are a lot of very sweet, kind of tender moments, a lot of typical teenage horniness going on. I've quite enjoyed this, actually. It's something a little bit different, I think, with the premise and where they're going with that. And overall, it's a pretty sweet anime if that's your jam. Outside of that, two quick mentions for isekai stuff this season. I'm gonna say that Reincarnated as a Sword is it's okay. It's not bad. That's gonna kind of be your fix, unless you want a more like Chunyumbi version of that, in which then Eminence in Shadow is going to be your jam. But I'm not gonna go and Google that. If you're curious, I'll go and check it out anyway. But those are the two kind of like top isekai stuff that we got this season. But in season as stacked as this, yeah, that's all they really get. One lines.
Nice. Okay. That wraps it up for Isis Anime Corner, I guess. All right. Let's move on to the next topic, where Hardy will be talking about the current overhaul in the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe, that's currently going on under the helm of new,
President?
what do you call it, showrunner, James Gunn.
Yeah.
What's been going on with DC, Hardy?
So James Gunn came on board, and immediately nobody knows what's going on. Right? So Gal Gadot is not coming back for Wonder Woman.
It's Henry Cavill for Superman.
is no longer coming back as Superman, despite the two posts that Henry Cavill and The Rock had posted before James Gunn's hiring, where they said that Superman is coming back, right?
Yep.
So that shows you what they know.
Okay. Yep. Well, what does Henry Cavill know?
Yeah,
And Gal
exactly.
Gadot. Patty Jenkins.
So right now, it feels like this is another reboot, another DC reboot again, right?
I think they should They should really just wipe the slate.
They do have
There's
to,
no
lah,
fixing.
yeah.
There's no fixing DCEU.
Yeah.
And James Gunn, had a lot of people criticizing him for firing Henry Cavill, or rather, not renewing Henry Cavill's Superman run.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think the DC higher ups, I guess, they have a good idea of what James Gunn can bring to the table. With his rebooted Suicide Squad, I think that did quite well. It made the D-list characters stand out. People actually, enjoyed that film.
Like Peacemaker.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone made John Cena into a legit actor, lah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And James Gunn did that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he did that also
Yeah.
for
Batista.
Two WWE wrestlers are now taken seriously as actors from not that anyway, what the future holds for DCEU, however, is still in the fog of war. There's no news yet apart from Gunn taking over. Gunn and Saffron, I think.
Yeah.
Sarfan.
Yes.
Sarfan.
The new president, yeah.
Exactly. So it is still under wraps right now. Only we know that there's no more Gal Gadot, there's no more Henry Cavill. We are not sure where the rest goes, but I'm guessing it's going to be the same thing. I think
Jason Momoa has been recast as Lobo, which is a much better role for him.
exactly, and something that he said that he wanted all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that is quite interesting is also the fact that I feel that the criticisms are a bit too early and also unnecessary, because DC has made flops after flop lah. Like just a few 5 years ago with the whole like Batman versus Superman shenanigans, or
just last year
Yeah.
just last
with the Snyder Cut.
exactly. Or even then, the Justice League was nowhere up to what it should have been lah.
Yep.
There's rumors of it going back to the golden age of DC,
Oh.
Okay.
where a more retro style of DC superhero kind of thing might be going down. That might be an interesting proposition, I think, because first of all, you don't want to do what Marvel's doing. Marvel is too far ahead in their experiment that the worst thing that DC does is copy that. And I feel that DC really needs, James Gunn especially, really needs to just go back to the drawing board and just start from scratch and come up with something, different and authentic lah. Because I feel that the superhero space is becoming too saturated, and a lot of low quality shit has been coming out from Marvel as well. You
Yes.
know, it's not that Marvel's perfect. It's just that they have more hits than misses, lah.
Even when they miss, they make money. So I mean,
Exactly.
Black Adam didn't make money. In fact, it
It
lost
lost
money.
money.
Sally,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, and I love The Rock. You know how much I love The Rock, right?
Mhm.
And even then, also,
sure.
I couldn't. Yeah, I understand why it can't be, remade, lah. Or sorry, not
Hmm.
remade, rather have a sequel.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not profitable. What
it's
to
not.
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something that the DC universe really needs to ask itself: why is people not flocking over to watch this shit, lah?
Yeah.
And that's
Hmm.
because you must understand how the MCU started. The MCU started with Iron Man. That was how that one experimental film was the catalyst for the rest of the MCU. That
Mm.
that film and then a few good other MCU films after that, kind of
Mm.
like the Avengers. I think will be one of them.
Yep.
I think one of the seminal films in the MCU would be also Winter Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm.
all these films built the capital, the audience capital, lah, basically for the
Mm.
for audiences to come back to watch it, lah. When the brand Marvel, you kind of expect a certain type of film and a certain quality,
Yeah.
Mm.
and that's because yeah lah, from Iron Man 1 all the way to Winter Soldier, all the way to maybe Avengers
Endgame,
Endgame.
Infinity War, Civil
Yeah.
War. Yeah.
So all that is not just, you can't just try and build that out of nowhere. When the initial batch of the Justice League happened, right? I felt there was
Hmm.
a very pale imitation of what Marvel was trying to do, lah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I feel that with James Gunn in the helm, maybe they can do something different. Yeah,
Mm. Hopefully.
because
Hopefully.
because Guardians was a very different film than the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the MCU back then.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
so hopefully, we will see something different from James Gunn. I mean, I am not putting too much hope on it. It just feels like DCEU is like rebooting every few years.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So,
so we'll see.
alamak, we'll see lah. I hope for the best. I want to see DC rebooted. I want to see DC
Yeah,
successful.
Yeah.
I like DC as a property. DC
exactly.
was the first comics I read.
Yeah,
If they do want to go the old school classic route, I suggest they reboot the whole franchise with All Star Superman,
of
Oh
course.
yeah.
Grant Morrison, and all of that.
Mhm.
Let's just get it.
Get it right, lah.
Go back to basics.
Yeah,
Go back to basics.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I do say is good. The good thing about having Henry Cavill no longer with DCEU is that Henry Cavill can now work on the Warhammer 40K franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where he has announced the start of the project of a live action 40K film with Amazon
Mm-hmm.
purchase.
Yep.
So that's something exciting to look forward to also, lah.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. Okay. So that almost wraps it up for this episode of Genre Equality.
Mhm.
To cap it all off, let's talk about what we're looking forward to in 2023.
Ooh.
Each of you guys, I'm sure you have stuff that you're looking forward to. Off the top of your heads, name me one film and one TV show
Ooh.
that, above all others, you definitely cannot wait to watch in 2023. Let's start with you, Isa. Do you have any thing? I'm sure you do, lah. But like, could you narrow it down to one thing, one TV show, and one film that you definitely want to watch in 2023?
Okay, definitely want to watch. I'm super excited about Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Sure,
Yeah.
of course.
I think
Yeah.
that is, to me, as far as genre stuff goes, that's the most, like, it's the highest on my list. Dune Part 2, I'm very curious. But I'm not going to get my hopes up high just because, these things have a way of, like, yeah. But yeah, I think those two are the two main ones for me.
Okay, so you name two films, not one TV and one film. Can also lah.
Yeah. I mean, what is coming out for TV?
I don't know. But let's see what's on Isa's. What's on Hardy's slate.
Okay.
What are you looking forward to, Hardy?
definitely Quantum Mania. That's
Ooh.
one.
Okay, coming quite early in February, March, like that. Yeah.
In terms of TV shows, Mandalorian season 3,
Ooh.
All right.
right? And Halo season. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck that show.
Yeah.
And also the other TV show, I think, was Secret Invasion.
Hmm.
I think that's next year too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so that's the two things that I'm looking for in the TV landscape. In terms of the movie stuff, Quantum Mania, that's how I said, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I guess since everybody broke the rules, I'll name two for each myself. My number one for TV is not Mando season 3, but Ahsoka season 1,
Oh, yeah, I
aka
forgot about
Rebels
that.
season 6.
Oh,
That too.
nice. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the one that I'm really really psyched for.
Season 7 actually,
Ahsoka
right?
is. I'm sorry. Yes, Ahsoka season 1, aka Rebel season 7. It's about
Rebels
to be.
season 6. You're right. So, Rebels.
You got me doubting myself.
Yeah,
You're the black belt, and I was
you're
like,
right.
okay,
No,
different
you know why?
me
Because
lah. You know.
I was thinking of Clone Wars.
Oh.
No. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Asuka season 1 is my top pick for TV shows.
Nice.
Yep.
Probably like a distant second is Like Yourself, Secret Invasion. Probably.
Ooh. Okay. And what
Um.
my TV pick is? Please go ahead.
Okay. For films, I probably will pick number 2. This is a very very distant second to my number 1. Very distant second.
Say it.
But okay, you've already talked about Spider-Verse, right? I'm not going to touch that.
Okay.
My distant second is Transformers.
Oh, Beast Wars.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
It is a very
Transformers,
distant
right?
second, but I know what you mean. I was going to say that actually.
Transformers Rise of the Beast.
Yes.
I mean, Beast Wars was the cartoon that we all watched as a kid that got us back into Transformers, you know?
Yeah.
Transformers
Wars.
Gen 1 was our parents' Transformers. Beast Wars was our generation Transformers.
Yeah.
And considering that Bumblebee kind of reinvigorated the franchise a bit, I'm down to watch Rise of the Beast for sure.
Sure.
My number one, not just I think the genre film that I want to watch the most, but the number one film I want to watch the most next year is Barbie.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm down.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
so down to watch Barbie. Absolutely.
Greta Gerwig after Lady Bird, after Little Women, I don't see how anyone can doubt her.
Yep.
Barbie's teaser trailer looked like a work of high art. Something that only someone like Greta Gerwig can bring to a franchise like Barbie.
Yep.
I predict Barbie is going to get a Best Film nomination in 2024.
Amazing.
Mark my words.
I mean, the teaser trailer was
there
quite
we go.
interesting. That was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah. It's directed by Greta Gerwig. It's written by Noah Baumbach, who wrote Marriage Story and stuff like that. This looks to be like way beneath them, but I think they're elevating Barbie to something that we've never seen before. Very excited for it.
Looking
Okay.
forward
Back to you, Isa. TV side.
Yes, on the TV side, and I can't believe I didn't remember this given that I just saw a bit of behind the scenes stuff. I'm really excited for The Last of Us TV series.
Yeah. In January, very soon.
Yeah, so I completely forgot about that. But yes,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that
Last
would be
of
my
Us.
TV series pick.
Awesome. Okay. Lots to look forward to
About-
in 2023. I mean, I'm of course looking forward to like the Marvels as well, seeing Kamala Khan and on a big screen. I'm surprised that Isa didn't pick Dune Part 2.
He did.
I mentioned it
You
as
mentioned
yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay lah. Can. Yeah. I mean, lots to look forward to. I hope Dune Part 2 comes out next year.
Fingers
If all
crossed.
goes well,
Fingers
If
crossed.
all goes well. I mean, recently, I saw Tim Chalamet and Zendaya all post that they just finished shooting. So,
Nice.
can lah. Enough time to do post-production for a November release.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, that wraps it up. It's been a great year, 2022, of genre titles, of course. Looking forward to talk about more genre shit in 2023. Till then, though, this has been Hit Zero.
Hardy.
I'm Isa.
Goodbye, guys.